I found emails from my wife to her lawyer. I want to take his business and house before he finds out about the affair. I forwarded everything to my attorney, locked down my assets, and left town. When she filed for divorce, her lawyer turned pale seeing what I had done. From the outside, our marriage looked picture perfect. I mean it. We had the house, the cars, the vacations in Aspen every winter and Aruba every summer. Friends used to joke that we were the ideal couple, the ones who somehow kept it all together even when life got messy. I owned a small but successful marketing consultancy, and she worked part-time in real estate, which she said she loved, but, truth be told, I was the one paying most of the bills. At first, I really believed in us. She laughed at my stupid jokes, bragged about my work to her friends, and genuinely seemed happy. If there were problems, they were the kind that felt normal, disagreements about stupid things like where to put the Christmas lights or whether we should get a second dog. Nothing major. But then little things started to shift. She started working late. And by late, I mean rolling in at midnight, reeking of alcohol and cheap perfume that wasn't hers. Not exactly the subtlety of a master criminal. When I asked, she always had a script ready. Client dinner ran long, or we went out to celebrate closing a deal. I wanted to believe her. God help me, I wanted to. The distance grew. Intimacy was rare, and when it happened, it felt mechanical, like she was checking a chore off a list. Her phone, once left lying around, was now glued to her hand. She started locking it too. Classic signs, right? Still, I told myself it was stress. It was always stress, right? Until the night I stumbled across something that shattered every illusion I had left. It was a Thursday. She was already asleep, phone buzzing on the nightstand. A stupid instinct made me pick it up. Maybe I was looking for reassurance, a dumb text from a friend about lunch plans or her mom sending dog memes. Instead, I found emails. Not just emails, a full-blown, premeditated, scorched earth campaign against me. She was emailing a divorce lawyer. Not to protect herself, no. That would be understandable. She was planning to steal my business, our house, and leave me with nothing. The message that hit hardest? I want to make sure I get the business and the house before he finds out about the affair. That line is burned into my brain like a bad tattoo. I sat there, blinking at the screen, feeling like the air had been sucked out of the room. My heart wasn't just broken, it was stomped, spat on, and set on fire. She was plotting both, cheating on me and taking away everything I built. I didn't even get mad right away. Shock is a weird thing. It freezes you, makes you go cold inside, like you're watching your own life from the outside. But once the initial paralysis passed, the anger came. And then something even stronger, clarity. I wasn't going to be a victim in my own story. No way. If she wanted a war, she was about to find out that I don't fight fair when I'm cornered. I didn't sleep that night. How could I? I sat there in the dark, the only light in the room coming from her phone screen as I read every slimy, conniving message she had sent her lawyer. They had it all mapped out. Served me unexpectedly while I was at work. Claim I abandoned the marriage emotionally. Demand the house, my business, and half my retirement account. File first, so she could set the narrative before I even knew what hit me. I guess when you think someone is a gullible fool, you don't bother covering your tracks. I forwarded every email to my private email address, then backed them up to 2 different cloud accounts. I printed copies and stored them in a locked box at the office. Call me paranoid, but paranoia is what keeps you from getting financially bled dry by someone you thought loved you. Around 4 a.m., I texted my lawyer, John, a friend from college who now specialized in business law and high-asset divorces. Emergency. Wife's planning to take everything. Need to meet ASAP. He replied almost instantly. Come to my house. Bring everything. By 5:30 a.m., while she was still drooling on her pillow, I was sitting in John's kitchen, drinking black coffee and laying it all out. John flipped through the emails with a look that was part disbelief, part professional excitement. You realize, he said slowly, you just handed me a nuclear bomb. Good. He explained what I needed to do fast. Lock down all business assets. I immediately transferred ownership of the company's intellectual property to a trust one controlled, and moved liquid business funds into a newly created business account under the corporation's name only. Protect personal accounts. I opened new individual accounts in a separate bank, froze all joint credit cards, and restricted access to my personal savings. Secure the house. Since I was the sole owner of the house, I bought it before marriage and never put her name on the deed. Thank God for youthful paranoia. John filed paperwork preemptively to prevent any emergency motions trying to claim occupancy. Get the hell out of town. It sounds dramatic, but disappearing for a while was strategic. The fewer opportunities she had to fake arguments, stage photos, or manipulate public perception, the better. John said, "You vanish. You're a ghost." She files thinking you're clueless, and then boom. Within 48 hours, I was gone. I told my employees I had an urgent family situation. No one questioned it. I barely took vacations as it was. I packed a bag, withdrew some emergency cash, and rented a furnished apartment 3 states away under a different name. A little life hack if you ever need to disappear without technically breaking any laws. And I waited. I watched the emails roll in. At first, she was casual. "Hey babe, thinking of you. Hope work isn't too stressful." The acting skills of a soap opera star, if soap operas were written by sociopaths. Then confusion started to seep in. "Hey, where are you? You didn't come home. Call me ASAP." By day 4, she started to panic. "We need to talk. I'm worried. Please answer." I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. Because I knew something she didn't. By the time she finally filed for divorce, thinking I was still dazed and defenseless, the stage would already be set for her downfall. Hiding out gave me a lot of time to think. It wasn't pretty. I played the greatest hits of every insult, every lie, every stupid thing I missed or ignored over the years. Her fake smiles. The sudden girls' nights that always seemed to end with her stumbling home at 2 a.m. The business trips that somehow never had an itinerary. The new lingerie she bought, just for herself. Yeah, sure. But anger has a way of burning itself out after a while, like a forest fire. What was left inside me wasn't rage, it was cold calculation. John and I spent days fine-tuning our strategy. We wanted her to file first. It mattered for court optics. She needed to walk herself into the trap, thinking she was the one pulling the strings. It didn't take long. About 2 weeks after I ghosted, she filed for divorce. John called me that afternoon, barely containing his laughter. She filed exactly the way we thought. Claims emotional abandonment, seeks full ownership of the house, the business, and half your retirement. Bonus, she filed for spousal support, too. I asked, deadpan, did her lawyer burst into flames from the sheer amount of lies? John chuckled. No, but he's going to wish he had when I file the response. We let a few days pass. Enough time for her to feel secure, confident. She must have pictured herself giving interviews on daytime TV. How I overcame adversity and built an empire after my horrible husband abandoned me. Yeah, about that. The next move was beautiful in its simplicity. John filed an emergency protective motion citing her adultery with evidence, thanks to her brilliant habit of documenting everything and her conspiracy to commit financial fraud. He attached the emails. All of them. When her lawyer received our response, John said the man went pale, the kind of pale that makes you check your pulse to make sure you're still alive. Apparently, he realized 2 things instantly. His client was screwed 6 ways to Sunday. He could be disbarred if he'd known even a fraction of what she was plotting and went along with it. I wasn't there for the meeting between her and her attorney, but John described it for me. She marched into the office all smiles and demands, probably expecting champagne and a high five. John said the lawyer sat her down, dropped the packet of evidence in front of her like a lead brick, and just said, "Explain." Now, witnesses said she turned bright red, then white, then burst into tears. It wasn't the tears that amused me. It was that she thought crying would still work. You can't cry your way out of a war you started. After that day, the tone changed. No more sweet text messages. No more, "Hope you're okay." Just cold, curt legal memos and desperate attempts to negotiate. Too late. She played dirty. I played smarter. And at that point, there was no mercy left in me. The formal confrontation wasn't a spontaneous explosion. It was carefully, brutally orchestrated. John arranged for a preliminary court hearing, a motion to secure my business assets and the house pending the full divorce proceedings. Normally, these things are boring paperwork exercises. Not this time. I showed up wearing a dark suit and a calm smile. She showed up wearing a tight, too short dress and the kind of fake sadness you see at bad funerals. Trailing behind her was her new boyfriend. Yes, the very same affair partner she thought she'd kept hidden. The moron had the audacity to show up like it was prom night. The look on her face when she realized I was already there, not somewhere sobbing into a beer, but sitting composed, collected, fully lawyered up, was priceless. Court began. Her lawyer made the first move, full of bluster and self-righteousness. Your Honor, my client was cruelly abandoned and deserves full ownership of the marital assets to rebuild her life. He droned on about emotional distress, financial dependency, yada yada. I watched her nod along, squeezing out a few fake tears for effect. Then John stood up. Cool, calm, deadly. Your Honor, he said, we have evidence showing that the petitioner engaged in an extramarital affair, conspired to defraud my client out of his business, and made documented plans to deceive the court. I submit exhibits A through G. He handed the judge a thick folder. Emails, screenshots, financial records, private investigator photos, text messages. Her lawyer went from pale to translucent. The judge took his time. He read, and as he did, the room grew colder and colder. Finally, he looked up at her, and her lawyer, and said one sentence that made my entire year. I am strongly inclined to award the respondent exclusive use of the marital home and business pending a final judgment. Translation, I just won round one, and badly. Her mouth fell open. She looked like she was about to faint. The boyfriend grabbed her hand. She yanked it away. Guess chivalry only works when you're winning. Then came the final blow for that day. The judge ordered her to vacate the house within 48 hours. 2 days later, I pulled into the driveway of my home, alone, while she sobbed and threw trash bags full of clothes into her new boyfriend's rusted pickup truck. As she loaded the last of her stuff, she actually had the gall to turn around, tears streaming down her face, and whisper, "We could have worked it out." I didn't answer. What do you say to someone who tried to ruin you and only cried when they got caught? I just stood there, silent, watching her leave, the door slamming behind her like the last chapter of a book you'll never open again. And for the first time in months, the house was quiet. Not empty, not sad, peaceful. You'd think watching her leave would feel victorious. It didn't. Not at first. After the door slammed, I just stood there, surrounded by echoes, not of her, but of what I thought we were. Every corner of the house held some memory that now felt hollow, like a stage set abandoned after the play ended. I wandered from room to room, not really seeing anything, just existing. The couch where we used to cuddle on Sunday mornings. The kitchen where she used to dance barefoot, laughing at her own bad singing. The bedroom where, apparently, she was already planning how to betray me long before I ever suspected. There's a moment when betrayal hits you that nobody really talks about. Not the rage, not even the sadness. It's the numbness, the absolute nothingness. You question everything. Was she ever in love with me? Were any of those smiles real? Was I just convenient, a steady paycheck and a soft place to land until something better came along? The thing is, pain is honest. Pain strips away every excuse, every lie you told yourself. And as much as it gutted me, it also gave me something I hadn't realized I'd lost: clarity. I didn't deserve this. I hadn't failed her. She failed herself. And the part of me that wanted to bargain, to understand, to somehow fix things, that part died the moment I saw the smugness on her face when she thought she had won. That's when the anger started to fade, not because I forgave her, but because I realized anger still gave her a space in my head. And I wasn't about to let her live there rent-free. So I started making lists. Yeah, I know, sounds stupid, but lists helped. Simple stuff. Change the locks again. Deep clean the house. Replace the bed. Cancel the old joint credit cards. Get a new number. Block her on everything. Every checkmark was a tiny reclaiming of my life. Every task completed was a brick laid between me and the wreckage she left behind. Some nights were still brutal. I'd sit there, nursing a glass of bourbon, staring out at the empty driveway, and wonder how someone you loved could morph into a stranger so completely. I'd replay conversations over and over in my head, looking for the exact moment when it all started slipping away, like a detective sifting through the ashes after the fire. Spoiler, you never find that moment. Because when betrayal happens, it's usually not a single event. It's 1,000 tiny cuts you never saw until it was too late. The worst part? You lose trust, not just in them, but in yourself. How could I have been so blind? How did I not see it? What's wrong with me that I didn't know? The answer, I eventually realized, was brutal but freeing. Nothing was wrong with me. Trust isn't a flaw. It's a strength, and it's not my fault that she chose to exploit it. The healing didn't come in grand, cinematic moments. There was no triumphant montage of me running marathons or learning to paint or finding new love 2 weeks later. It came slowly, In quiet mornings, drinking coffee on my porch. In gutting the house and repainting it one room at a time, shedding the last fingerprints of her existence. In laughing, really laughing, at something stupid on TV without feeling the weight of sadness right behind it. It came in forgiving myself. Not her, never her, but me. For loving fully, for trusting deeply, for giving someone my heart even if they didn't deserve it. And with every piece of myself I rebuilt, one thing became very, very clear. She didn't break me. She freed me. About a month after the court hearing, she tried reaching out. Of course she did. It started with a text. Just one line. Can we please talk? I made a mistake. No apology. No ownership. Just that classic, self-serving panic that sets in when the walls start closing and they realize the grass on the other side wasn't greener, it was AstroTurf laid over a sinkhole. I didn't answer. 2 days later, another text. Please, let's just meet for coffee. 5 minutes. I miss you. Right. She missed me the way a thief misses the house they failed to rob. Still, a part of me, the wounded, tired part, wanted to scream back. Why? Why did you throw it all away? But there's no answer that would matter. There's no magic phrase that would turn betrayal into an accident. Silence is sometimes the loudest thing you can say. So I stayed silent. When the final divorce settlement came, it was a masterpiece. Thanks to John's strategy and the mountain of evidence, I kept everything. My business, 100% mine. The house, mine. The retirement funds, untouched. Debt, she walked away with her own credit card bills and legal fees. Spousal support, denied. She tried. God, she tried. Cried in court, even. It was almost embarrassing to watch. The court order included a no-contact clause for 12 months unless absolutely necessary through lawyers. I asked for it, and John pushed it through. I needed space. Space she no longer deserved to invade. The day the judge banged the gavel down, finalizing it all, I didn't feel a surge of triumph. I felt relief. Pure, clean relief. Like finally setting down a weight you forgot you were even carrying. I went home that night, poured a glass of bourbon, sat on my back porch, and just breathed. No drama. No schemes brewing behind closed doors. No fake smiles hiding sharpened knives. Just peace. Over the next few weeks, her messages kept trying, like tapping on a locked door from the outside. Each one more desperate than the last. Please, I still love you. You were the best thing in my life. I made a terrible mistake. I never answered. Not once. Why? Because closure is a lie. You don't need to sit down and hold hands with the person who burned your house down just to feel better about walking away from the ashes. You don't owe them forgiveness. You don't owe them explanations. You owe yourself freedom. Cutting her off wasn't an act of cruelty. It was self-respect. She made her decisions. She just didn't like the consequences. There was one last thing I did, though, maybe a little petty, but I have no regrets. I mailed her a copy of the finalized divorce decree, along with a simple handwritten note tucked inside. Actions have consequences. Have a nice life. No threats. No venom. Just the truth. She didn't reply after that. I guess even she knew when the game was finally over.